friend. I'm so glad you're back for another episode of the Happy Whole You podcast. I have Victoria Rader with me, and she has a PhD and is a visionary leader and a possibility coach. She transforms lives through her pioneer work in quantum personal development. And as the founder of Why You to Shine, she empowers individuals to break free from limitations and unlock their fullest potential. Globally recognized for her expertise, Gloria blends cutting edge quantum techniques with timeless wisdom to guide her clients towards prosperity, personal freedom, and inner fulfillment. I'm so excited to share her with you today. She has a list of credentials that's absolutely amazing. I mean, she has been featured in Forbes, CNN, Fox, NBC, ABC, and her wisdom has even reached the moon through the Lunar project with SpaceX. So we are about to have a great treat. I'm excited for you to hear this conversation with Victoria. So here we go. All right, Victoria, thank you for joining me on the Happy Whole You podcast.
Thank you for having me, Anna Marie.
Well, I just shared with our audience a little bit about you, but in your own words, could you share who you are and the difference you want to make in the world?
I think the greatest aspect of who I am is a child of God. I
Oh.
am a resilient, relentless, feisty, and joyful daughter of God, great overall designer, and I'm a mom to two remarkable kids that I homeschooled while building businesses. So with a lot of overcoming, crying, and succeeding, failing forward. Have a husband of 30 years, so I'm a wife. I'm a incredibly addicted pet owner. I have 4 dogs and a cat. I'm an avid tennis player, and then I happen to be pioneer quantum personal development movement globally with this incredible company, You Do Shine, that now has over 20 people in our phenomenal team, tons of products and services, and continues to be a joyful hobby of allowing people to shine the light they've come to be. So that's in a nutshell who I am.
Oh, well, that is what a full life you have. That's so beautiful that you've designed your life with, I mean, so many wonderful things and elements in it. What do you think has been that inner calling within you to create the life that you have now? So do you feel, I guess better said, do you feel like you've created your life, or do you feel like life just kind of happened and you got lucky, or like how would you verbalize your creation?
I think I call them actually 3 levels of empowerment. And I think it's important that I share this. For me to mention is that, there's this whole hero journey that every business wants to pull out of the client, the hero journey, which means once I was in the dark and then there was an insight and now I live happily ever after. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not my life. Like the dark is every day. The inside is every day. And so it's important for me when I say these 3 stages to understand they're not stages of life. They're stages of overcoming either daily, weekly, monthly, however we go through them. And the first one is feeling completely disempowered. And that's when life happens to you. And we've heard everybody talk about it. And life does happen to you. You can't like say, no, it never happens. I'm Ukrainian. When the war started and I started losing my friends, I didn't feel I created that. And I
Mm.
felt completely hopeless. And so feeling hopeless, life does happen to you. And then my favorite quote from Tony Robbins is that it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. I had to sit down and say, I can't control what happens. How can I control how I contribute to the different outcome? And that's, what lessons am I learning? But then the third level, I think that's very important of empowerment, and I'll share my life that way, is life does happen to us and life does happen for us. But until life happens through us, we're not fully alive.
Mm.
That's what I've come to believe. And so I've given myself permission early on to use either something happened to me, or I've learned a lesson, it's a blessing for me, to those two are relevant. What can I do right now by surrendering myself to divine grace, to infinite flow of love? How can I be an instrument of love and life here and now? And so I think that's probably been the instrument of creating for me. And it started very early on, consciously, subconsciously, probably for most of my life, but consciously, I was a new mom. My daughter's 20, almost 28. As it was just a new mom, I brought her home. We were completely broke. I was laying in my bedroom, no curtains on my windows, like it just, and I felt inept in every possible way. I was financially inept, emotionally inept, physically inept, just there's nothing. And I went and, tell people I do have one earned PhD and one honorary PhD, which is in self-pity. And so I'm just like laying in bed in complete self-pity moment. And that's probably the point of shift of life happening through me, as at that moment, what became very clear to me as a prompting for me. And because of my background, I have Christian background, I was shown that Christ was born with nothing, and it was more than enough to have the impact that he had. And it doesn't matter whose belief systems are, right? We all know who he is. So he's had an impact that he had. And laying there and saying, I'm not in a cave. And so I've given birth to a baby. So what I have is more than enough to have a global impact I'm born to have, has been the most powerful approach for life for me. To not wait for something or someone or something, but just say, what I have is more than enough.
Hmm. Wow, that's beautiful. So you said like life happens through us, and that's like the space to like get to. So if someone's listening and they're like, yeah, that's really great for you to say. You have this global business, you have all of these things, and they're like struggling to like even just get out of bed or to take that next step for, this business idea they've been desiring, they've been wanting. What would you say would be like some maybe words of advice or first steps to help someone go from that almost victim state of being to a more empowerment and flowing with life? What would you say to them?
I think the first step is to validate that what you're experiencing is completely normal and it doesn't have to be a norm. It's very freeing to say what I feel is completely normal. I'm not less than, but it does not have to be my norm. Today, I'm going to choose a norm that is a little better. And so, if it's been normal up till now for me to stay in bed and feel sick and sad, I'm going to get out of bed and today feel sick and sad. But tomorrow, I'll get out of bed and I'll say, what is the one thing I'm grateful for? And the day after tomorrow, what are the two things? And the day after tomorrow, I'll say, what is the one person? And I'm actually giving the actual sequence, not just an example. What is the one person who is worse off than I am? And what can I do for them? I think the faster anybody gets out of the mode of self-pity and self-suffering, the faster they get into service, the faster they thrive. I had a very humbling experience with that. I think in 2000, I was in India with my husband, and he was there for work, and he was speaking at a university. And I was with a group of women, and we were taken to this old, I believe it was Catholic parish, and their whole purpose was to serve the kids from the slums, which is translation. During the day, all these kids are begging, or if they're 12-year-old girls, prostituting themselves to survive or to feed the family. And then at 2 in the afternoon, the bus would go in the slums and collect all these kids, and they would brought them into this one spot. And they had three topics. It was like English, math, and the world. And the world covered everything. And so they're sitting there, and there are two groups only. The whole group of kids is divided in two groups, younger and older. I don't remember the age cutoff. But we're sitting behind the younger group, and there's this boy, age probably 8 or 9. He raises his hand to run out to the bathroom. And the bathroom is an overstatement. There's no indoor plumbing, so the bathroom is the bushes outside. So he runs out, but he runs back in much faster than expected. And he sits right in front of me and I get emotional for him. And all of a sudden he has this little fist with dirt under his fingers. And that fist, he puts it behind his back and over my lap. And then he opens the fist and a rosebud falls out of that fist. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what a lesson in humility. Here I am pitying somebody because of their socioeconomic status. And this powerful spirit is much more abundant than I may ever aspire to be, because he's coming from a place of contribution and sharing of beauty. It just was the most amazing shift for me, where I said, I have no moral right to ever pity anyone or feel sorry for anyone. My job is to remind them that they're not sorry. There's nothing sorry about them. Their life might suck, but there's nothing sorry about them. They're a powerful spirit that is trapped in a current prison of circumstance. Let's break out of prison. And so that moment has become super powerful for me. So when I catch myself in those feeling sorry for me, that is poison. The
Mm-hmm.
poison is feeling sorry for yourself, because that erodes your soul. So when you feel sorry for yourself, you got to stop yourself and literally say, there's nothing pitiful about me. There's nothing sorry about me. I might be sitting in a pile of shit, I'm sorry, but I'm going to get up, clean up, and move up. And it's a daily reminder.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so powerful, and I think we can find ourselves doing that too. It's like, you know, I remember when I was going through school and doing my master's degree, we had to go through I started off my career as a teacher, and we had to go through some specific programs at San Diego State, and it was about socioeconomics. And like, one of the examples was, okay, if you give this family $300 and they go out and buy a TV, what do you think of that? And people were like, well, and these are people that can't buy groceries, roof over their head, all these things, and hard to pay their rent. And it was just so interesting because the whole lesson was, who are we to say what they do with those $300? And I just remember that lesson because it was like, wow, like they have, it's not for us to judge. It's for us to, like you said, like just be there and not pity people. And I don't know, that just reminded me of that story because it's so powerful, because I can catch myself also being a fixer and wanting to fix things for people. I don't know if you've ever been that way.
Yeah.
Like overstepping, and it's like just stepping back and trusting the flow is so powerful.
I had one of the amazing opportunities. I always seek out mentors. I have a lot of my mentors have become very close friends now, but one of my mentors that passed on was Bob Proctor. And Bob Proctor used to tell me, he said, go where you wanted, not just where you needed. Once you understand what I'm teaching you, you will change millions of lives, not insist on hundreds. And it took me many, many years to understand, because I used to laugh that I'm one of those girls who, when the fish is like dead and dying on the beach, I'm like,
Yeah.
you can swim. You
Yes.
can
Yes.
swim. The fish is like, it's my time to go, okay? I need to die. I'm like, let me resuscitate you. And what happens, and I will call it for what it is, when our ego of a rescue, concept tries to save a few, we are limiting our divine calling to guide many.
Mm,
And so it is such a huge shift to understand that you can only help people that want to be helped.
mhm,
And the greatest thing we can kindle in somebody is desire for that help.
mm,
If you kindle a desire, then you can lead them. But without desire, no matter how great the need is, no matter how much you meet the need, they will immediately have a greater need to meet. It's a fascinating concept.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. I've listened to some about Proctor's work and wow, the fact that you get to know him, that's absolutely incredible and amazing. And you said you brought up the ego. Share with me what is the ego from your viewpoint and is it good? Is it bad? Like what how do you navigate that?
I think the answer is it's necessary.
Mhm.
The answer would be it's necessary. As long as here's an example. As long as we're not a part of a new, uh, community, we've got to wear clothing. And so ego is a defense mechanism of our vulnerability in our soul. And so the ideal state of ego is when it is so aligned with the soul that it doesn't sabotage it. And then there are levels of ego, right? I love each and every one of them because the only thing you can align your ego with your soul is not by punishing, not by scolding, not by shaming, but by loving it so much that it no longer has to throw a fit of abandonment.
Mhm.
So, there are different levels of ego. I think the most obvious one for us today is with all the narcissistic patterns and behaviors is the ego of inability of receiving love, and then you have to be right all the time. And that is the most draining one when you constantly need to be right. Like imagine if you just didn't need to be right anymore. Freedom.
Free at last.
That comes with that. So that's the first ego healing. But because I work a lot in spiritual circles and in energy healing modalities circle, I got to tell you, once you heal the ego of identity, you step into spiritual ego, and that's a real bugger because it's when you're like, well, I now no longer go to toxic people. I'm like, okay, let's start tapping out that. As long as you identify anybody or anything as toxic, you're simply announcing that your capacity to forgive and to love is diminished. You don't need to be friends with everyone. You need to have discernment of what you need to nourish your soul without laying a layer of judgment on somebody who is wounded.
Mm.
You think toxic, we're pointing jeering fingers in spiritual circles at wounded people. So that's where I'm thoroughly entertained, and I often say I love my ego. She's just full of herself. you know and that's okay because she's the one who pulls me out of bed when I might not feel doing it. So that's what I think. It's all about the level of surrender at the end of it. Either probably a deeper concept, but at the end of it, either your soul is limited by your ego thriving, or your ego is limited by your soul thriving. And so you're going to feel constriction. You got to feel comfortable feeling constriction.
Mm. Yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
That's really good stuff. Okay, so have you always been in tune with your more spiritual side, the soul level, side of you, like, out of the womb, or is this something that you gone back to? How did that unfold for you?
I was born in a former Soviet Union, so not only there was no God, there was government. We did have Lenin to worship. Uh, but I was an incredibly psychic kid. I was born with very intuitive capacities that, of course, were not welcomed by the society I was born in. And so the beauty of that experience was that I had to learn that my internal world was untouchable and I could dwell and thrive internally and then in amazement see how it would unfold externally. And I started making early parallels that the less I was allow for the, jeering and the judgment and everything else outside, and I would just observe it. But my biggest shift was when I was 16. I was going to Kidman Hill Academy, 16 through 17. And every Saturday, a bunch of my girlfriends would come over and I would do quote unquote readings. I mean, I now understand that any reading in a traditional sense is simply a person's ability to scan your energy of probability or possibility. You can use a book. You can use a book. You can grab a book and say, what's on my mind? Open any book and read a paragraph and be blown away how intuitive you are, because the quantum field is always aligned. But anyway, every Saturday the girls came over, and this one particular Saturday, I was looking, I think we were playing cards, tea, whatever. And I was very clearly seeing that she was going to lose a close relative. And I thought it was her dad. But I didn't say anything. You don't just go like, let's
Yeah.
have some coffee. Like,
Yeah.
it is likely to die. Are we still friends, But the shock came when 2 days later, this vibrant, healthy man in his 40s died from a heart attack. And I went into a complete shock of, what is all of this? Why do I know these things? How do I know these things? What am I, and most importantly, what am I to do with these things? So I
Yeah.
always had a raw gift, but I didn't know what to do with that gift. So I did what every good girl does. I decided to suppress it
Push it down.
and, and never use it again. You know? It's like, let me put the lid and seal it and pretend like I don't.
Oh.
And so that's what happened at that age. But by the time I met my husband and I couldn't deny this knowing, I finally started looking at different modalities and different books, and I started learning that the knowing does come from two very distinct sources. And if the knowing comes from the source of light and nothing but the light, it has no selfishness to it. And it has very quiet, peaceful feeling. And if the knowing comes from anxiety and from getting ahead and from greed, that it does come from the lack of light. And I had to be very clear that both exist, and I couldn't deny either, because by denying one, I would be denying the other. So that's my personal journey into that.
Wow. How do you navigate through that on your day-to-day life? So because I've interviewed some people that are consider themselves intuitive, that consider themselves psychic. I've interviewed people on the podcast that have crossed over and come back with greater gifts. And sometimes one of my guests in particular, who's a friend of mine, she had to like learn to shut it off because when she would go into crowded rooms or whatnot, do you have anything that you have to be consciously working on, or do things just come to you? How does that show up in your day to day?
So first, I want to say that every single human being, without an exception, has a claim to all of these gifts. That's just so important to me. It is so important to understand that if you are a breathing physical being, you are an intuitive breathing physical being. And you are just, whether you are either aware of that or not. And I tell people, and it's so simple, I'm like, have you thought of somebody and they called you? Well, yeah, but there's no but. There is freaking no but.
Yeah.
And so the fastest way to start developing it is to actually, because our mind is attuned at all times, and the question we ask of our mind will plug it into the source of the question. So if you ask God-centered, God-guided questions, you plug into one source. And if you ask the opposite questions, you plug into lower sources, and they're infinite sources. And so if you ask yourself, who is the one person that needs to hear from me right now? And pause, and the name pops up. And then grab a phone and be like, okay, so what do I do with that? And just start typing. It is the most gorgeous thing to start realizing. And if you do it every day for short 30 days, what's going to start happening, you will have developed the receptors for receiving a needed intention. And then through those same receptors, you will start getting promptings, not only of a name and what to do, but why don't you go do this? And you will start following them. The trap is to not assign results or meaning to the prompting. Because if you think you received a prompting to get a certain result, now you're in control. And if you're in control, divine isn't. You can be in divine control, And so and why do I say that? If you and I are going through the forest and we got completely lost and we're both so intuitive, as a matter of fact, our spiritual egos are like, I'm a complete intuitive psychic. We're like at a level of complete joyful, ego-centered intuition. And so we come to the fork in the road and we are lost and we're like, well, which way should we go? And both you and I, completely aligned, say we're going to go right. And we go right, praising ourselves for our intuition, only to come to a dead end. And when we come to a dead end, that's when test of faith comes in. And it's like, well, but I felt I was guided. And I felt I was guided. Then the blame game begins. Well, but really, I think it was your idea. No, it was your idea. And, we have these games of blaming it versus understanding that that was the fastest, most efficient way to get us where we're going. Because had we gone on the other side, we wouldn't have come out of the forest for an hour or 2 or 4 or 5. And now we will keep going because we know that the other way was dead end. It's a very powerful concept in intuitive capacity. Very often we question our intuition because we ran into the dead end or we didn't get the result we thought was associated with it. But when you go like, okay, I was guided to know to stay on a different path and redirect immediately. That way we can start developing our intuition in a much more effortless way.
I love that. That's good. And it is something that needs to be practiced. I've learned that in my own life. It's you can get in your head, and when you're in your head, it's things can get screwy up there.
Yeah.
So you have this 6-step quantum leap to manifesting what it is your heart desires. Can you share with us what are those 6 steps? So everyone get your notepads out.
So there are 6 aspects of creating your reality, and we already started with one, but I'm going to go back to the right order. So just like we have 5 senses, we see, touch, smell, taste, and what else? And
Here.
see, so well, here we go. So when you have 5, but we have 6 mental faculties that actually create our reality, and all 6 must be harmonized to manifest.
Hmm.
And so we actually talked about intuition, which happens to be the third mental faculty. But the very first mental faculty is perception. So as you perceive, so you receive. That's number 1. As you perceive, so you receive. So when you are in one of our programs, we open each one of the faculties with aligned laws. And the very first law is the law of awareness. So notice what and how you notice, because what and how you notice is what and how you create. It's
Mm.
just that simple. So if you're a single person who is attracting a soulmate, just observe how you react to happy couples. Because whatever feeling you attach to them is the feeling you manifest more of. So your
Mm.
first step is be so joyful for their joy as if you are experiencing it. So learn to receive, and then with perception, constantly ask, what is a high level of perception, so that you can keep rising. If you're looking, I have clients do the exercise. When you're in the middle of a problem, you're really in the middle of the problem, and you cannot manifest the solution by being in the middle of a problem because you're the frequency of the problem. So you have
Oh,
to literally imagine, just tell yourself, 3 to 1, I'm above the problem. Because the higher the distance, the smaller the problem. And literally train your brain to go above the problem, where you can see opportunity of solutions. Just imagine that our brain is very imaginative. It works in images. So just imagine you're holding the problem, it's right here in front of you, and now you're going, I'm a foot above it, I'm 10 feet above it, and now I'm looking down, and now I'm going to see the solutions. Very important. So perceive problems through solutions, And always ask, what is a higher perception? What is a higher perception? And then observe how you perceive, because how you perceive is how you receive. If you're looking at your bank and it has $50 and you have, shoot, I only have $50, that is the perception. If you look at your bank and you see $50 and you're like, oh my gosh, it's
Yeah.
$50. It's $50. So use only for debt and statement of fact of abundance. Release, for some reason it's coming in, so I shall release the phrase, it's only, when you talk about money. Oh, it's only 100. Oh, it's only 10. Because the universe doesn't understand size. It's all energy. So if you don't appreciate $1, you're not
Yeah.
going to have 10 million.
You know what? I love that you said that, because I will literally find a penny on the ground and I'll pick it up and my kids giggle at me. And I'm like, what do you think the universe is going to think when you step over a penny and act like, oh, it's just a penny? I'm like, you can't get to 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, a billion without starting with a simple penny first. And so I'm the one that always, if I see a nickel, whatever, I always pick it up and I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I put it in my pocket.
Love it. Love it. It's the love appreciation. What you appreciates, which means
Yeah.
grows in value. It's that
Yeah.
simple. So perceive the world through appreciation, and then it will appreciate. That's the first faculty and, practice of manifesting. So then the second one is imagination. Perception is how you receive. Imagination is how you send out.
Mm.
Imagination, you cannot out imagine your self image, and your self image is a reflection of your self worth. You cannot out imagine your connection to your self worth. I think it is such a vulnerable point today in today's world, I believe. You know, like the alignment of it, I'm working on Worthy Me Journal to add to our journals. In our Empower Dash Me app, I'm adding a tapping session on the worth, because there's a confusion between your infinite worth and your economic worth.
Mm.
And
I
you've
have to
got
take notes.
to know the difference between the two, and that they're completely unrelated. If we heal that, we heal so much. And so that's the imagination. With imagination, go to self image, dig deeper for self worth, work on your self worth. Why? Because if you're worthy of the life you're attempting to manifest, then you can perceive the opportunities and imagine the bridges to it. And here's why the intuition is number three, because we perceive by receiving, we imagine by sending out, we create a tuning fork,
Mm.
become in tune. People right now confuse intuition with instinct. Instinct is a survival mechanism. So your instinct, when the house is on fire, is gonna get you out of the house. And you'll be like, I was so intuitive. No, you were instinctual, and they're not one and the same. If you were intuitive, you would have called an electrician a week prior, having no reason. Would have rewired your house, right? Because the intuition works for you to thrive. And so the more you perceive life as a miracle, the more you imagine life as a miracle, the more you're in tune and you become intuitive to the opportunities to build it. The fourth one is reason. You have to have a reason to be the cause versus find reason for becauses in your life.
Mm.
When you say, I can't do this because, you're violating the reason of creation. You are the reason of creation. So when you hear your brain say, I can't because, literally tell yourself, stop and be the cause. And say, you can't. I love affirmation. We work with affirmation. You've got to affirm the truth for every cell of your being. I call them bridge affirmation. So instead of going from I am broke to I'm the cause of money, go to every day, in every way, I get a little more abundant. It's so powerful. You can buy that. And so be the cause of what you want and speak the cause. And that's reason. And then after reason comes memory. When you balance those first four faculties, you start remembering, and it's tender for somebody who I think will be listening today, that you right now are living a dream of you 3, 4, 5, 10 years back. And all of a sudden you remember versus forget that everything is already unfolding through you. And as it does, you go to the very last and very powerful mental faculty that we started with, which is will. And that's where you surrender your will to divine and you start trusting that things will unfold for you in much more miraculous ways if you don't insist on having them your way. I used to say it's God's will, but Vika's way,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever. Universe's will, God's will, but it's my way. Well, I mean, you can force manifestation, but if you align with manifestation and if you perceive opportunity, things will happen you could have never had on your dream board. One of my works flew to the moon. What? That never was on vision board. I didn't even know that it was, I'm in the movie with Joe Vitale, where I watched The Secret, and watching The Secret was like, oh wow, it'd be nice to know him and be in the movie with him. Things align up that you cannot foresee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. 1000%. So if somebody's listening and they're like, okay, I really want this thing but it's just like not happening and I've been at it for a while
Yeah.
and they're starting to get frustrated, maybe they're starting to like just get down on themselves, like what would you share with them to help them?
So two things. One is a practical shift that'll help a lot. And two, I'm actually going to talk about the biggest block to manifestation, and we'll shift a little bit of that in a practical way. So the first thing is you can scream at a rosebud all you want. You can pray over it. You can pee on it or sleep on it. It will not blossom until it's time.
Mm.
Always the birth of every single thing. We can work with or against the laws. Manifestation works with the law of divine timing, not against it. So once you have manifested something, trust that it's unfolding. But the important thing to remember that right now, right here, actually we're recording this on new moon, so it definitely is right now, right here, is the time to not only plant this seed for something, but but also a time to gather harvest on something else.
Mm.
So don't be stuck at waiting for a seed. You've planted it. Ask, what is this a perfect timing for me to reap harvest in? I see so many people so focused on manifesting one minor shift that they go through the field of abundance with blinders on them.
Yes. Yes.
And so when you're looking for that one distant thing and you're walking through fields of gold, it's just tragic. And so the question is right here, right now, forget about what you're manifesting completely. It's taken care of. It's
Mhm.
taken care of. And ask a question. This is a harvesting season. What and where am I to harvest today? What am I to do today that will bring immediate, miraculous results? And focus on that. And then you can be continually reaping while nurturing, while seeding, and not waste your whole life holding out for a condo in Manhattan that you will move in when you're 95, having missed your whole life, being like, I did it.
Oh gosh.
I found in Manhattan. So yeah, because you might find out that if you don't walk by a partner with a plane to fly you to a castle in Lisbon, you didn't even need the condo in Manhattan. Saying, I see it all day long. So that's number one. Number two, the biggest block to manifestation, if it is divine timing for you to receive it, is grief. I'm going to go to our app actually. One of our apps is called Empower-Me. It's at empowerme.love. Everything is love. Empowerme.love. I'm going to go to my grief subset. So all manifestation happens through the energy of joy. If you're not joyful, you're blocking the flow of creative energy.
Mm.
All of us carry unprocessed levels of grief. This app actually was created for me, by me, because I couldn't find a tool. And now it's like, we're selling them all over the world. So you go to my grief. I'm going to tune the app to them. Yeah, this is the fun thing. You shake the phone with complete trust that it'll intuit into our audience here. And what it does is just the validation for the block, the visualization for release, and the affirmation. Oh, wow.
Mm.
Here's the validation. I feel I'm not allowed to grieve. So for anybody who relates to not allowing to grieve, please close your eyes, and with your eyes closed, imagine yourself crying on God's shoulder. Feel all the pain and anguish. Allow it to come from you and to God. Imagine letting it all go and still being held with care and love. And then put your hand on your heart and repeat, I'm now free to grieve and to let go of my grief. I am hopeful. I am me. And even as you say that, the flow of energy is going to go through you immediately. We can go to a different subset and go to the my answer to anchor the release of grief. And with my answer to follow up for it is Michelangelo, genius is eternal patience. Be patient with yourself, be patient with others. Allow your inner genius to fully come in. When you're impatient with others, it is because your strength is their weakness. Look for their strength instead. Affirm, I am now aware of my skills and my abilities. I am patient at implementing them and wise at recognizing those of others. I live a life of appreciation of human genius. I'm grateful, I'm patient, I'm me. So it's really fascinating how intuitively the app just summarized our discussion up till now.
Yeah.
So that's a very practical tool, and it's whooping $20 or $19.99 a year.
Oh, wow.
A lot of our clients are in countries that really need help. We're keeping it at cost. So
Yeah, that's amazing.
Mm.
That's beautiful. I love that. Okay, so we have I wrote these down, the perception for the first step, and then the oh, I know what I was going to ask you. Sorry, this is my brain
Yeah.
swirling. When you talked about, and I really love this, the infinite worth
Mhm.
versus the economical worth.
Mhm.
We live in a society right now that, and I look at from a woman's lens of, you know, I'll get you to make 10,000 a month, or I'll get you to make this much a month, and you just have to manifest this, and everything's like a push, and it's such a force. And I want to back up and say that there was a time in my life where I was being influenced by that heavily with a company that I was with, and everything felt forced. It felt forced. And the moment I stepped back from that and I slowly started to get away from that, things started to just like come into me financially in a more abundant way than when I was like trying so hard. But I love that infinite worth because I feel like infinite worth for all of us is just, oh, like I could cry how much worth we all have. But when someone is trying, or maybe they're connecting their self-worth with their financial end, how do you help them maybe work through that or feel that or see that? I don't know, because I feel like it's so powerful and relevant that I meet people every day that are extraordinary, and yet they feel they're coming up short because they don't have X amount in the bank or whatnot. And it's like, you girl, you are amazing. you know?
No, Anna Marie, I feel so strongly that it is such an undercurrent right now that literally a week ago I've recorded. So one of the things I was privileged to do is to start a free me EFT, proprietary EFT
Mm.
movement I have instructors globally. We have incredible practitioners. So what I've done for the app, and it'll be live in the app in 4 weeks, is tapping session for worth to reconnect to infinite worth, and then tapping session for the word money, so that there is neutral charge to money. So you're not triggered either negatively or positively, but you have neutral charge to money. And I have them as 2 separate sessions because you have to, as a matter of fact, the tapping session on worth is also completely free, available at mygiftoffer.com. If anybody can go to mygiftoffer.com, there's a 12-minute video of tapping anything that's in the way of you feeling that you have infinite worth and restoring that you're worthy of love. And then there's also an ebook that has 50 limiting beliefs and 50 quantum shifts for those beliefs. Out of 10,000 plus client sessions, those are the 50 most sabotaging beliefs. That one is free. Mygiftoffer.com. I bought it years ago. Now it's serving a good purpose. And so that's where you got to tap out anything that's in the way of your worth and free the worth. And as you free that, I had an amazing opportunity. I just spoke at this ideal mastermind to a group of millionaires and billionaires, wonderful entrepreneurial in the world. And I said, okay, if you set a goal and you did diligent steps and you achieved it, raise your right hand. And everybody raised their right hand because all of us have done it. And I said, that's good. That's your right side. Say, I'm right. I'm all right. Pet that ego thing. I did the right things. So I'm all right. I feel good. And I said, great. But how many of us have set the goals, have done all we could, and received nada, nothing at the end? So let's all raise left hand. And that was everybody in the group. And I think it was so helpful to see that it's everybody in the group. And I love English language because it's your left thing. It's when you've done all you could and there is nothing left.
Mm.
There's nothing left. So what you come to realize is that when you know you're all right, even with nothing left, you've arrived at your infinite worth
Mm.
and you become unstoppable. And you no longer need to prove yourself right. You no longer need to condemn anybody wrong. You know that you will be all right no matter what you have left. And when you release the fear of losing material, you free yourself to infinite abundance. And so that is as simple of a process. And if there was a faster way to release it, I would have come up with it. But the tapping for me is the fastest way to restore the core infinite worth connection.
Mm. Yeah, that's fantastic. So we'll put that in the show notes, mygiftoffer.com. That way people can get
Yep.
access to that. So yeah, thank you for diving into that because that was, I think a lot of people can relate to that. And it does feel like an internal pull and struggle. And I think that with social media it can amplify that for people. And it is freeing when we don't tie our self-worth to the financial outcome of something. And it's hard to work on, but it's well worth it. It's well worth doing the work. I still feel like I'm doing the work, and it's like there's that little thing in the background, that can come up for a lot of us. And but it's having more moments of feeling free than not that I think is the real win of the evolution of at least my soul, what I'm working on and through this lifetime.
Well, and the irony is there isn't a third setting. There are only 2 settings. There's the setting what I have is more than enough, as that I appreciate it, it grows. Or as soon as then, and then there's never enough. My favorite sad, tragic story is about Adolf Merkel, who was the richest person in Germany and 12th richest person in the world. When in 2008, the market started crashing and he lost $3 of his $1 billion. He committed suicide. He still had $9 billion. But his worth was so it's just there's no third setting. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to so deeply appreciate whatever you currently have and then start managing it with wisdom and growing it into infinite prosperity, and
Mhm.
give yourself permission to be worthy to appreciate what you have without hiding from fake experts on Instagram who
Yes.
live in mom's basement and are going to teach you to make millions of dollars. Like, when do we believe everything that's been
I
posted?
know.
Come on.
Yes, it's wild, it's wild. Okay, what is something maybe that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you, or something we should have talked about, but we have not talked about before we wrap this up? Is there anything that stands out to you?
Yeah, not, I think what comes in immediately is that not waiting for tomorrow.
Mm,
I'm going to share with you what I call quantum alignment system, which polishes all of these mental faculties and is super easy. You know how people set up an annual theme? So you would ask, what's my annual theme? Whatever you receive is that you write it down. Then you're going to ask a question, what is my theme for the months that supports my annual theme? And every month you write that down. And the rubber meets the road when every day you only have one task, everything else is secondary. You're going to say, and it's a very loaded question, very powerful question. Every phrase in it has been like polished by gazillions of sessions, so I wouldn't change it. The question is, what is one question to ask, one decision to make, or one action to take for me to thrive from my monthly theme? More miracles have happened for me and hundreds of people that live this system than you can imagine. So you detach yourself from manifesting something somewhere. You're aligned to the present moment and you're open to all the miracles. One of the biggest things, so I feel like we've badmouthed billionaires today, so I'm going to talk about one of my clients who is a billionaire actually. And it's my favorite story because, to onboard the clients, they have to commit to this system and report daily. And so I get this text. This is so stupid. So I was pondering and it was like, go buy an apple. I'm like, well, go buy an apple. It's not a big deal. What's the big deal? I haven't shopped for myself in like so many years, I don't know where the store is. I'm like, you can find the store. I'm going to encourage
yeah.
you, empower you. So he goes, finds the store. He buys one apple, literally, because he buys one apple. He stands in line. He gets the apple. And then there is an elderly lady who's got like a ton of groceries, whatever. I'm not there. I'm just kind of picking up the story. And so he's a very decent human being, impatient, but very decent human being. And he's like, why don't I help you to the car? And she says, I can't go to the car. I actually Ubered here and my son's going to pick me up. My son is flying out of country. I haven't seen him in a long time. And I got things to fix his favorite food. So she said, I'm just going to wait here. And he says, you know what? I'm just going to stand by. I'm just going to wait with you so you're okay. Meanwhile, I'm getting these fiery questions. Great. Now I'm standing. But then he's doing decent, incredible things, right? But not necessarily
Yeah.
happily, but that's okay. And so this guy comes in. He's so grateful that, that my client just kind of overseen this lady and gets her groceries, puts him in, and gives my client a card. And he says, listen, this might have been a small thing for you, but anything you ever need. And as my client looks at the card, the guy runs a company with raw resources that my client has been trying to connect with for over 3 years.
Of course.
Right? And so now, does it happen every time? Of course not. Will you know why you got silly promptings from the universe or from God? Of course not. But there will be a moment like that will make it so meaningful, right? For me, right now at my house, my sister-in-law and my 8-year-old nephew are here helping me with the backyard. I'll go
Mhm.
over to them in a minute. And when she was pregnant with him, at 7.5 months of gestation, they found out he had 5 heart uh, issues. And as he was scheduled to be born, there were surgeons on staff. The room was full of doctors, including helicopter nurse. A helicopter nurse is not there for the birth for any other reason but to collect the organs if the child passes.
Mhm.
And that year, I had a very clear prompting. The theme for the year was healing, serving hands, helping hands, healing hearts. for the whole year, I've acquired every possible modality without having slightest of clues that in December 28, when he was born, I was going to apply every single healing modality I've studied ad nauseum, traveling the world to witness infinite miracles happen in that boy's life. And we avoided the first 48-hour surgery, and then the second and the third. And at the end of the year, when he no longer had to be coming once a week for his heart analysis, his file actually says medical miracle.
Oh,
And, everything else I will ever do is just a secondary bonus. It's just a gorgeous secondary bonus. But yeah, so quantum alignment.
mm, that's powerful. That's an amazing story. So, what is it that did you do something for him, or was it just you creating an alignment and an energy frequency? What was that?
I was using several techniques. I was using quantum touch and I was using theta healing. By then, I became one of the top healers in terms of certification. So I was doing theta healing, I was doing quantum touch. There was a huge power of prayer. I had a very clear insight of prayer. I was shown that with every person who prays, there is a spiritual blueprint. And when there is enough energy that have created spiritual blueprint, the energy has enough power to move into material manifestation.
Mm,
And so every single prayer actually matters. And
yes.
if it is in alignment with divine will, we have not extended his life. His life was meant to continue, and we were just equipped to sustain it, right? I'm very clear on that. And so, but um so every single thing worked, and I just happened to have developed skills that practically, we had the really cool thing was one of the conditions he had was a severe artery coarctation where the artery was completely shut off. And so when he was born, he was put on a breathing medication, on the breathing apparatus. And his first surgery was 48 hours after that to open the artery. And that actually sometimes autocorrects in a small percentage of kids. And so, but when they lined him up for surgery, we were actually watching. They took over 200 pictures because his artery literally opened up in front of the doctor's eyes. And that was the first beautiful miracle. Once again, that has happened for some infants. And so we're just, I always say you don't need to have a credit. You don't need to get credit. It's like it happened. We were grateful. Then the second thing that was actually made it to Zero Limits movie, his both valves were not closing, and one was open 4 millimeters, and one was 8 millimeters open.
Mhm.
And I remember a very clear guidance telling Nanda, I said, the doctor is going to say, this is the millimeters that it's open. And the only reason I believe we're given this knowing is for you to know that it is a divine will for them to close. Like you can't demand specifics, you can only receive them. I hope everybody hears that. You can't demand answers, but you can be open to receive them. And so when they went in and they ran the numbers and the numbers came 4 and 8 millimeters, then immediately came in the next knowing 3 weeks later or 4 months later for the other one will close. And I'll never forget when I got a text from Nanda and she said the doctor just came in and said the valves miraculously closed. So we avoided the second and the third surgeries. And then his hole in the heart closed. And then by the end of the year, the murmur was gone. And so it was a whole year of healing through different modalities, through continual prayer. And I think she as a mother and my brother as a father, I was doing sessions for them as well, because genetically when you do a healing on a parent, it unlocks the stagnant energy in an infant. And so everybody was just very, very committed to that, and it was a beautiful journey.
Yes, that's amazing. I love that. Yeah, I think that's one of the most powerful things that, um, one of many powerful things that we all have the ability as a human is when we heal what's going on within us, people around us heal. Our ancestors that came before us, the ones that are going to come in the future. And I truly believe that. And so that's one big reason why I think that in the lifetime that we're given here, uh, we're supposed to work on these things and trust and be in flow. And, because it's not like we're here just for ourselves.
For one, for better or worse, or
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yes. So, oh my goodness. Victoria, this has been such a treat to have you on. And I really appreciate you just sharing your knowledge, your wisdom with us. And hopefully, these were some reminders or some openings for some of our listeners. Can you share with everyone just one more time where they can follow you, connect with you, and we'll also add it in the show notes as well.
Beautiful. So the Quantum Leap book and the worth tapping is mygiftoffer.com. The app, empowerme.love, I believe it's our greatest, most affordable, most powerful tool. And then anything and everything is you2shine.com, you2shine.com.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.